Hello, everybody. Welcome to Relatable Stories. I am your host, Angeline, and today I'm excited to be hosting my Nini Rebai. I've introduced her to you in the week. We are going to be talking about PTSD. What is PTSD really? I think a lot of us have been asking the question this week. I've been asking the question because I thought I knew it, but as I was reading about it, I realized that I really didn't know much. But to those that are joining us for the first time, Relatable Stories was created to cultivate self-love by the telling of relatable stories. That is just to help us enlighten each other on the areas that we might need to grow, and all those areas can help us transform our mindset. And so that's why we are here. We need to be able to relate or be aware of the issues that are affecting the people around us, affecting us, be very, very aware of the brokenness that is around us, so that we are not predisposed to abuse, so that we are also not toxic to other people. So I am very excited now. I'm going to introduce you to Ravai. Hi, Ruth.
I was busy copying the link to people.
Welcome to the show.
How are you, Angie?
I'm great. Thank you, my darling.
I'm so blessed.
Thank you for coming and for joining us. You know, you were supposed to be our very first guest, and then there was these technology issues that we were having. So it's really nice.
Before then, we didn't know about StreamYard. So
yes,
unfortunately, no, but now we're here. I mean, God was reserving this time.
I know. I totally know. I know what you mean. So, Rabbi, we're just going to get right into it. And you know, you are the student. You are the one who knows or understands psychology. I mean, this is a subject that is very interesting to me, and I think a lot of people that are going to be watching and chiming in might not actually understand what it is. So, as a general definition, before we get into like practicalities and the relatable story, could you please just tell us what PTSD really is? Even the full term of it, because some of us just know the abbreviation.
Okay, so basically when it comes to PTSD, you have to, please forgive, my nephew is at the door. My nephew is at the door, he wants to get in. But anyway, so with PTSD, you have to understand trauma first, what trauma is, and then we get to PTSD. So with PTSD, it's post-traumatic. So sorry about that. Anyway, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, which means that post is after, right? So there must have been something that had stressed you out, an event that caused you to be stressed, and now you're experiencing sort of like symptoms after the event that stressed you out. Okay. So firstly, initially, we have to understand. So Inini, I'm a teacher, right? So I have to have my notes aside. So I'm going to be reading some of these things because I really want to give you the actual definitions.
That's fine.
Just in case some people caught me and did it. So anyway, trauma is the response that a person has to a deeply distressing event. Okay. It overwhelms an individual's ability to cope. You feel helpless, and it can diminish the sense of self or your identity, and it causes you to not be able to experience life in a normal way. Like if a person is used to being happy, a person is used to being fine, a person is not fearful, and after that event. Now, the difficulty in the field of psychology is that what is a traumatic event? Because people are different.
That's the question I was going to ask you right
there. People are different. People react to situation or respond to different situations differently.
Okay.
In the field of psychology is actually defining what that event is. Okay, so it is. I mean, we do not generalize. There are situations, like for instance, if a person is raped, we can consider that to be a traumatic event. But then again, it does not necessarily mean that a person who's traumatized is going to have PTSD. Those are two different things. Okay, all right.
Right.
So
Right.
another way to define trauma is it is an emotional response. Now, trauma is the response that a person has to that disturbing or distressing or the negative event that you have. So another way to define it is the emotional response that a person has to an extremely negative event. So we can say maybe a person went through domestic violence, a person. So usually Kudara, PTSD was often associated by people who were coming from war or people who had war veterans, because they would have been exposed to combat. They would have been exposed to very, very gruesome and very traumatic things. Sometimes they're the ones that experienced it, or they witnessed somebody experiencing it. So you find that when a person is back, they're not really back. They're still there, but then their physical body is here. Okay. So in a situation where a person is traumatized, you need to get help. And sometimes it's not even help like with a therapist. One of the most important things in the field of psychology that we advocate is if a person has social support or support from loved ones. If a person has a good support system, if a person has loved ones, and if a person has a healthy relationship with the people around him or her, you find that usually a person is going to be able to recover. So what usually happens when a person experiences something that is distressing or a negative event is that every human being has a response. So you find that people can have things like normal stress response or acute stress response or stress disorder, which is just generally the response a normal human being has to anything distressing. So let's say you lose a loved one, right? Or you experience maybe a natural disaster, or maybe you going through, maybe you got fired, maybe you relocated to a new city, maybe you got divorced, maybe something that is just stressful. A person is going to have a normal stress response.
Can I just hold you there? Can I just hold you there? I feel like you're giving us a lot of information right now. And I just want to
sorry.
No, you're on teacher mode. You're like, teach. So
okay,
I want to make sure that I'm getting you right. You've stressed that our traumas are going to be different, and no trauma is going to be expressed in the same way in all people, right? So you were giving examples now of traumas that can cause an emotional reaction, so to speak. So what I wanted to understand is all those things that you're listing, because these are the things that are happening to us as people that don't know what PTSD is, that we're always thinking it's just a war vet thing. Things like divorce, things like relocating. Are you actually saying, or is it possible for a person to actually experience PTSD because of those things, these normal things that you're listing right now?
I mean, it could happen. It is a possibility, but it's most unlikely. It's most unlikely because that's why they then put in the category of normal stress response, acute stress disorder. Things that sometimes they usually say small traumas and big traumas. Although I usually don't like saying that because I want to classify a person's trauma as small because someone is being distressed. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But then in the categories of stress, they have different types of PTSD or different types of how a person responds. So you find that if a person is relocating, they can be stressed, but they can quickly get over it because it is something that is not as extremely distressing as maybe witnessing war. However, I'm not saying it's not a possibility. It could be, but it's highly unlikely. Okay, so for you then so why I'm telling you this is I want to build to understand, for us to get to understand what PTSD is, because everybody just assumes that if even people who get raped, sometimes they will not experience PTSD. Why? Because people are different. Because people have different experiences. People have different environments. Sometimes you get raped and you are very comfortable in open up to a person, and then you have a good social support system, you have a good family system, you were a healthy person before, so you find that you can recover quickly. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, I was saying that you have all these other responses that a person can have when they are experiencing anything that is traumatic, right? But then here's the thing, Manju. If a person went through something that is distressing and that is an extremely negative event, and the person started to experience some of the symptoms that I'm about to talk about right now, if they persist for more than a month and they are in a cluster, of the symptoms that I'm going to give you, then a person can be diagnosed with PTSD. If they persist for a certain period of time, that I am not a professional yet, I am not licensed yet, but I'm going to be one day. I know that. So those are the people. Yes, those are the people that are going to be able to diagnose. Don't go diagnosing somebody and saying PTSD, you have PTSD simply because they have one or two symptoms that I'm about to talk about. One of the reasons why I gave you normal stress response and acute stress is for you to know, Kuti, even if a person is displaying a symptom that looks as if they're struggling with PTSD, it doesn't necessarily mean they have PTSD. It just means they're a human being and they're responding to something stressful, because it's normal. There's no one that is going to be affected by something, and not respond. So a person has gone through maybe rape, right? And then what you also have to understand is that upon having that distressing event, you're going to react, you're going to respond. However you're going to respond, you're going to respond. So they usually wait for a certain time period, which is usually a month to 3 months, to see if a person can go back to their normal routine by themselves, where they don't need help, where they do not need assistance. Because sometimes you have to understand that people are very resilient. There are people that are very strong out there that can go through things, but then after a couple of weeks, they pick themselves up, but without faking, and they can actually go back to being to their normal lifestyle and to their normal routines. And then there are other people now that if they struggle, they go through something that is very distressing, they're not going to be able to deal with whatever happened to them. So usually the trauma specialists and the counselors, they wait a certain time period for them to actually say, okay, fine, this person is PTSD. And even if they wait a certain time period, the symptoms that I'm about to talk about, they have to be present. Are about 5. They're about 5. And they have to be persistent. And they have to be present without them ever have been there before. Like, for instance, if I say you have to have disturbance in sleep, you have to be a person who never used to have those things before. You see? And then upon the event of the distressing event, then you changed, and then you started experiencing a disturbance in your sleep. So for you to be classified or to be diagnosed with you know what, there's another type of PTSD called Cptsd, and I was talking about it earlier on today, so I keep referring to that. I don't know why.
You're going to tell us about it anyway, because now we're curious.
All right, so the information that I'm going to give you is coming from the DSM-5, which is DSM. It's a very long name. You don't need to pronounce. But anyway, it's pretty much the Bible, the psychology and psychiatry Bible that defines everything. One thing that you have to also note with these things is when they carried out research to come up with these symptoms and this criteria, I don't think Africans were involved. So in as much as they are there, they are generalized to the American population. Yes. So they also have
it's possible that there's some other symptoms that we might be missing that we
might relate to. Yes. I was saying, most of the definitions in psychology, they come close to defining something, but then you can never just say it's a black and white thing, because they can never conduct research on 7 billion people. It's just impossible.
That's true.
They just take a cluster of a population, and then so there's a list. There's about 5 categories or criteria that will make you be diagnosed with Cptsd, and then each category has its own sort of like sub points. All right. So the first thing is you have to be exposed to actual death, to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence. So the first one is you actually have to experience the trauma. You have to go through something. Okay. So either you have directly experienced the trauma, you have witnessed in person the events are happening to another person. So maybe you were the one who got raped, or you witnessed another person being raped. Somebody threatened you with a knife. They wanted to kill you, or you saw someone going through that. Okay. You have to learn
can like a near-death experience. Can a near-death experience that has nothing to do with violence also become traumatic? So, for example, say I was sick, had to be hospitalized, and I thought I was actually going to die. Can that be termed a trauma?
Yes, it can be, and it actually falls on the first one: exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence. So you had this sickness and illness within you where you actually felt like you were about to die, or you saw someone you love about to die from that sickness. It can actually be. You can learn that a traumatic event happened to a close family member or friend. They actually experience. So you're on the phone and somebody tells you, Tete so and so was about to die. It can actually traumatize you. You experience repeated or extreme exposure to negative details of trauma. For instance, my first responders who go to the sites of accidents, to the sites of those bombs. Like, we've never really experienced it, at least in our generation. But those people that used to go and collect my remains, or those people that work in ambulances that go and recover accidents, those people, they can actually be traumatized. So however, if you have been, this criteria does not fit a person who watches Mahura movies. It has to be real. You understand? It has to be real. So that was the first one. So basically, it was just saying you have to be exposed to something. The second one is after you've experienced, usually it starts exactly after the event. You have to experience intrusion symptoms, right? So what are these intrusion symptoms? This is recurrent, involuntary, distressing memories of the event. So you are busy going about your day, but all you think of is, I was raped. The guy was wearing black. He put me down. Everything about that event, you start having these memories that you never used to have, and it's like they have no permission to be there. You didn't say, "Oh, I'm about to think about the fact that I got raped." Like, it's just happening. It's intrusive. It's intruding your psyche. It's intruding your mind. Okay. So either it's a memory form, or you are having recurrent distressing dreams with the content of the traumatic event. So not necessarily you're dreaming about you being raped or you in war. You could be dreaming about some other people going through that, but then it has to have something to do with what happened to you. Now, I'm just using rape as an example, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the only thing that can cause trauma. You also have to have dissociative reactions. For instance, my flashbacks. So this is a flashback. Sometimes people actually don't believe these things happen. You're actually going about your day, and then you can instantly feel like having an out-of-body experience, and you begin to feel as if the event is happening. To relive, in which the individual feels or acts as if the event is occurring at that particular moment. Sometimes people who are going through these things, they can actually, and then those around them can say you were screaming and you were shouting and you were crying and you were saying help, but then you are at home, you're safe. What's going on? People might not actually understand what's going on. Or you can actually have a prolonged psychological distress and exposure. Okay, I can just explain these things. Okay, so you can be a person who, if you hear something or you smell something or you see someone who looks like your attacker or who you are suspecting to want to attack you, you can actually begin to have a reaction. Either it's physiological or it's psychological, where you cry, you scream, or some people actually freeze because the body is responding to what happened.
Okay.
So these are intrusive. This is a second set of symptoms where you have intrusive.
Okay, I wanted to ask, with anxiety attacks, is this part of that, or is that very out of context where people have those?
Okay, with Kudara, PTSD was classified as an anxiety disorder, but then it's been debated. It's not. It has to stand on its own. However, you may have anxiety as one of the symptoms.
Okay.
Because anxiety is being worried about something, to be in a constant state of worry. Though most times the things that you're worried about will never happen. Right? So the third cluster of symptoms is you have avoidance. So you have a persistent avoidance of the stimuli associated with the event. So this is when a person doesn't want to talk about what happened. Or you have a person, you have avoidance of or efforts to avoid distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings closely associated with a traumatic event. You avoid external reminders, that is people, places, conversations, sounds, objects that arouse distressing memories. So this is where you have a person who used to be very fun-loving, or who used to go to church, or who used to do all these things, and all of a sudden they want to stay home, they want to stay in their bedroom, they want to stay, because a situation like being robbed or being raped is one of the most it's because someone intentionally did that to you. Just see an accident, just see an sickness. When somebody rapes you, they got up and had the intention of raping you. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It confuses you. And it really just messes with you. So you start thinking, maybe if I stay indoors and I don't go anywhere, and maybe I don't dress sexy, I don't dress revealing, maybe I don't have to wear makeup anymore, maybe I have to cut my hair so that I don't look sexy anymore, maybe I have to gain weight so that maybe I'm not attractive, so that this person who raped me, you begin to have all these things where you avoid, which takes me to actually the fourth symptom, where Anzi, a negative alteration in your cognition and mood, which basically is just an alteration in the way you process things, your mind, your emotions, and your feelings, right? So you have a person who went through a traumatic experience. I actually used to have people who used to think people are lying when they go through a traumatic experience. Number one, you can actually have an inability to remember what happened because it was so violent. The brain sometimes, it shuts down because it does not know this memory. It does not know this thing. The brain is used to having fun. The brain is used to having, and then all of a sudden you went through something that is so distressful, it can shut down to protect you. And then now it just closes off. So tell us, when was it? Like, it was on a Tuesday morning. No, it was Wednesday in the afternoon. It is actually a common thing that happens to people that are struggling with PTSD. Now, this has to be persistent. Okay. So I told you this has to be something that is present 3 months or more after the event. Because if it's a day later, obviously the person is still distressed. You understand? Okay, so a person also can begin to have an exaggerated negative belief about themselves, where they begin to have examples of, I am a bad person, no one can be trusted, the world is not safe, every man is a dog, Black people are evil, old women, like I am so ugly, I am pathetic, I am stupid. You begin to have this negative, exaggerated belief of things that are happening around you because of what is happening to you. Okay, so this is a way why symptoms are so important. It's like we don't have a way to tell if the mind or the emotions are broken, unlike the physical body. When your leg is broken, we can see it. When your arm is broken, we can see it. When you're not well, you're throwing up, you're having blisters. But then when you're emotional and something in you is broken, we can't tell. But symptoms, they help us to pinpoint, okay, this is not all right. So a person is now constantly negative. Not because they want to be negative, but then something inside them is forcing them to say, I am bad, I am, because they are not okay. So we don't then just quickly say, I know you're beautiful. Don't. It doesn't help. Because even if you say you're beautiful, you might actually be making it worse. Because this person is what they believe.
It's trying to not be beautiful.
And then the other thing is a person can begin to blame themselves, can begin to think, like for instance, this girl, she was raped by a 60-something-year-old man, and she was in her 20s. She blamed herself. She's like, maybe if I had run, maybe I did something to provoke this old man. No, the old man is the one who's supposed to feel shame because he raped you. You did nothing wrong. And in some cases, the body enters into a state whereby you can freeze. I've heard so many people saying, why didn't you run? Because some people, when they go through something traumatic, are not freeze. And they shut down as a way to protect themselves so that they dissociate or they remove themselves from the scene and shut it down. They black out and then they come to when the event is finished. And now people are like, what do you mean? Something like that, of which it's not their fault. So they start to blame themselves. They start to blame, or they can blame others. If you had been there, this would not have happened to me. Maybe, but usually they blame themselves. They also go into a state of a negative emotional state. Like now it's not this day she was happy. They constantly have fear, horror, anger, guilt, or shame. Like they are now persistently just negative. They have you begin to reduce interest or participation in the normal things that you used to participate. Like for instance, you begin to see me, I delete my page, I shut down, I don't pray anymore, I don't bath anymore, I don't go out anymore, I don't talk, I do everything. You can actually begin to say, maybe something is wrong with this person. You begin to feel as if people don't understand you. You become detached from people, and you actually begin to feel like you're a stranger. No one understands you. And you are unable to feel positive emotions. I think we've covered that. Right. And then the last one is actually one of the things that actually I think is prevalent in a lot of people because it's so obvious. You have a marked alteration in arousal, which just basically means you become extremely sensitive. Okay. So this is when a person has irritable behavior or angry outbursts without provocation. A person just starts shouting, a person just becomes angry, a person is just becoming so verbally abusive or aggressive. They begin to engage in reckless or destructive behavior where they can begin to have risky sex. They just have one-night stands. They don't have protection. They just sleep with whoever, whenever, with whomever. They start doing drugs. They start doing alcohol. Because they're in a state of an increased alertness. You know, people who, have you ever been around a person who just says, check the windows, check the doors, check, is your phone in your bag? Is your phone? Are we? Oh my goodness! Did you lock the doors? Did you lock? Is everything fine? Yeah. Oh my goodness! Like they're constantly aware of danger, even if there's no danger around them. It's because you cannot explain what happened to you. You don't have an answer, so you don't know when you can be. So you're thinking maybe I let my guard down. So maybe let me have my guard up so that I don't get attacked, or this doesn't happen to me anymore. Or maybe I can avoid it. I can make it go away. A person like this also has that's called hypervigilance, which is just a state of increased alertness more than the usual. I mean, everybody's afraid of being robbed, mugged, but then this one is like, even as you've been in church or as you've been in hospital, like even dead patients, they might just attack me. They might just attack me.
It's an
A person
irrational.
has, huh?
I was saying it's sort of irrational, the fear or the
Yeah,
vigilance,
exactly. Yes,
not founded.
exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. A person might also have problems with concentrating. Like if you ever seen people, like there are people that are naturally like I'm bouncing my right leg. Like I think I got garachi. It's just
Fidgeting
like
all
or they
around.
sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're fidgety, they cannot concentrate because they're thinking, oh my goodness, something can just happen right now. Like
Yeah.
something can
Yeah.
just, and also the brain is replaying over and over again. Remember the first symptom is replaying over and over again what happened. So
What happened?
obviously, if you're in class and your mind is always thinking about I got raped, you're not going to be able to concentrate. You're going to be
Right.
thinking, when also wasted our time, like people are wasting your time and people are making it difficult for you to survive.
Right.
And this is why also people have sleep disturbance, which is the last, they have sleep disturbance because if you sleep when you got raped, wagamuka, what if
Yeah.
you sleep? So let me be awake. Or sometimes it's just because the memories are so intrusive, they're coming into your dreams. If
Right.
you sleep,
So
you're
you
dreaming
got that
about
one.
the event. If you're
Yeah.
awake, so it's just difficult. So you have to, like I mentioned, all these things that I say, they have to be present and prevalent
Right.
in a very obvious way for
Okay.
you then
So
to
I'm
say,
gonna
okay, fine.
right. I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop you right there because that was a mouthful definition of what PTSD is really. I don't know everybody who's listening if you guys are also feeling, oh my God, there's so much to it. I have been thank God that we are having this discussion and we can ask the questions. If you guys have questions, please just ask so that we can probe and actually get to understand what is happening or what we can look out for in ourselves. Because as you were speaking, I realized that a lot of the diagnosis that can happen, or even thinking that someone has PTSD, is mostly supposed to happen if an individual can recognize the symptoms themselves, because most of it is things that are happening in private, so to speak. So I don't know if you think that people around can be able to not diagnose as such, but pick out, that my loved one, my friend, is experiencing maybe 5 of these symptoms and be able to actually say, maybe you should go and consult somebody. Is it possible, or is it going to be everyone needs to be very self-aware to be able to recognize that they might have PTSD?
So I will say it's a bit of a both, like the person and the family. Like I said initially, one of the things that is going to determine if a person is going to develop PTSD, obviously, it's the nature of the traumatic event. Number
Right.
two, some underlying physical or emotional issues that isn't it you've heard, like with COVID-19, you heard that people who were contracting COVID, if you have underlying health issues, you were at a more
Right.
risk than people who were healthy, right? So with
Right.
PTSD, it seems as if people with underlying physiological or psychological issues are at more risk of developing PTSD. I'll give an example. Like if a person who has a weak heart, a person who actually had heart problem, they then
Right.
get raped. And then a person who has a healthy heart. I'm not saying the person who has a healthy heart is not going to develop PTSD, but the chances of the person with the weak heart to develop PTSD are high because already they have a heart problem. You get
Right.
it?
Right.
So
Right.
so you find that a person can go home, right? And then they go to a family. They don't have a support system. They don't have a
Yes.
support structure. And the event was very bad. And then they already have issues. Maybe they suffer from depression. Maybe they suffer from anxiety. Maybe they might actually develop PTSD because they have nobody to
Right.
help them. And then you have a household where maybe they already have physical issues or emotional issues, but they might have a household where they have support. You might find, Kuti, maybe that person is going to be open to talking about it. But then at the same time, uh, loved ones around you might actually make it worse.
Okay.
Because people have a tendency of wanting to diagnose a person quickly. And then if a person, imagine you with a person who's angry all the time. A person saying, "What here doing?" Like he's always jumpy. Like you can get irritated here. So instead of actually beginning to say, "Oh, I feel like this person is not well. What can I do? How can I educate myself with this?" We go in. Is something wrong? What is going on with you? You need to man up.
Yeah.
You need to grow up. You need to get over it. You were just raped. It's not like they killed you. We begin to judge a person's inability to cope.
Yeah.
Because maybe you were raped by 20 people and I was raped by one person. You'd be like, I was raped by 20 people. Trauma is not a competition. Trauma is not a competition. Trauma is not.
I like that statement. Trauma is not a competition. Yes. It doesn't have
trauma
to be
is not a competition. Trauma is not a competition. And even if I went through something small, it does not necessarily mean that you can come to me and say, I lost my parents. I lost everybody. You just lost your dog. Why can't you just get over it? People are different. Okay. So a person, like coming back to your question of can a person diagnose themselves? Sometimes it's very hard because one of the symptoms is avoidance. It's very difficult. This is where society, community, and family and friends are very important. But then approaching a person managing PTSD, like knowledge and wisdom on how to do it.
Right.
Because if you just approach somebody and say you have PTSD, they can shut down and become very defensive and they can be they're already irritable, they're already having angry outbursts. So it is important for a person to be self-aware, but then it is also important for family members to know the routine of a person, to know their loved one, and be able to help when something like that happens.
So I'm interested now to think, say, for example, your family has failed to pick it up that you, Ruth, have it, right? There's a traumatic event that happened in your life that they would know. And because no one recognized it, you are living with PTSD. And then you are now in a different environment where people that don't actually know about your traumatic event can see some of these symptoms. How I'm just concerned that is it what I'm looking at now is like 5 clusters of symptoms, but I can recognize some of the symptoms in some people that I have interacted with. Sorry, and for me, obviously, I can't diagnose them, but how would I, propel them to start thinking about it? Because why I'm asking you this question is, I feel like you saying, I think you have PTSD, even in the best way you can say it, is hard because you need the 5 clusters and all that. But in order to fill in the gaps and see if there's any other of the symptoms that you might be missing, they need to be open enough to be telling you. So how do you reckon that can be helped? Like I'm just thinking, or speaking for people that might feel they have loved ones that are going through or have PTSD.
Okay, so this is a very hard one because people tend to want to help and then they get offended if how can I put it? We tend to have our own way of helping in our heads, and we're not open to what that person wants. So you go to a person and say, can I talk to you? I notice you've been getting angry lately. You're not interested in these things. You're losing weight or you're gaining weight. You're just sleeping with everybody. Come on, what's happening, right? And then the person says, leave me alone, whatever, right? In most cases, the person is going to take it personally. And you can actually begin to pick up the phone and say, can you imagine I try to talk to this person? I'm the one who's good. They're actually in a very bad spot and I went to try and help them. Can you imagine the nerve? They actually cast me out and chased me out of their house. Can you believe it? And yet I was trying to help. No, you were not. You were not.
Yeah.
You were not really, because if you were open to helping, you will not take it personally. Because remember, one thing that I can actually say is that usually it's very rare for a person to wake up and say, I feel like I want to fight with Angie today. I feel like if I see, because if they do, it's actually very disturbing if a person is like that. But usually a person projects, which is a topic on its own. A person projects, which is they transfer their emotions and feelings onto you. So now you go to a person you want to help. You have to be open to the fact that that person is not ready to be helped yet. And unfortunately, that is the reality that we live in today. Sometimes, remember that test you wanted to take that other time, and you knew you had a test, but you were sleeping every day and you were avoiding it. Remember that exam, that assignment you had, and you kept saying, I'll deal with it tomorrow, until it was too late, and then you rushed and you made deadline in the nick of time. That's not to compare the two, but that is almost the same. So a loved one is actually something that a person with PTSD will try to avoid, because they are a safe place that will make them confront their emotions, that will make them confront their feelings. And remember, they don't want to do that. They do not want to do so. And they feel estranged and detached from people. They feel like nobody understands. They feel like no one hears them. And they are actually in a state of saying, I am bad, or the world is bad. So you are probably part of the problem and you do not even know it. So sometimes the best thing that we could just do is to just, you know, if you have the guts and you have the courage and you have the relationship, you go, you find a way to talk to your person. And if they reject your help, don't take it personally. Go back and I mean, me being a Christian, I start praying for that person and asking God for wisdom on how to approach this person and deal with them. Another thing is you can actually ask the person. Sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't. What can I do for you? What do you need me to do? Sometimes they'll say nothing, you know, respect that. Sometimes they'll say, I do this, maybe I just want to go and watch the tree. Go and watch the tree. Don't say, watching a tree is not basically. To you, it might not make sense, but to them, that's what they want to do. So I would say, be very careful when you say you want to help a person, because sometimes you want to help a person the way you want to help them, but you're not open to how they want to be helped. So and in most cases, when you listen, because I know when you were listening to some of these things, you could pick one, you could recognize some people. You're like, no, I never PTSD. But then also remember that sometimes it's not PTSD. Sometimes it's just acute stress disorder, where a person is just experiencing the symptoms of PTSD, but then they quickly resolve themselves within weeks. It's not a prolonged state.
So I'm going to say, when I was thinking of these people, I was looking at it from, they've always been on this tangent. So for me, it's prolonged, but I cannot say it's all the 5. So I don't know if anyone else can relate in the comment in the discussion there. But it's something that you notice is recurring, but you don't know if there's a trauma, or you do know about a trauma, but you cannot say that they have PTSD before you know that the other things are actually happening. And I like how you responded in saying that when you're offering help, you shouldn't take responsibility of the way that help is going to be given. You just offering to be an ear or to be a lending hand is enough. And even just, planting the seed of them thinking this could be something that I can get help on is probably enough. So I like your answer there. There's someone who's saying that sometimes it doesn't even need you to do something. Just listening might actually be enough. That's the first step. I don't know if you agree, but I think that would be great if they're talking. That is, if the person is
if they're open to talking about it, because usually, especially with females, and they're doing it to their spouses or to their brothers, like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I don't mean to make it in a funny way, but then a lot of times people want to talk, and usually talking is one thing they don't want to do. Okay. Right. So and also you have to also understand that these people are not idiots, and they are not people that are useless. It's a person who's going through something that is very difficult, even to them. They are failing to process the emotions of what happened to them. So they know you are their spouse. You don't need, like sometimes also you have to also remember that you don't need that validation from your spouse that they love you because they talk to you about their trauma. They know
Right.
you love them, and you should know that they love you. Because some of the times is on a tangent, but maybe sometimes there was already pre-existing problems in the relationship that
Yeah.
so now with this thing, now it's like you never talk enough to me. But then and then now you understand what I'm trying to say. If it was a healthy relationship between the two of you and you two loved each other, and then now you're going through something like this, probably you can actually understand it like, no, my husband loves me. He's just going through
Right.
something. He doesn't want to talk. It's cool. But I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's fun. And sometimes
Yeah.
people betray trust, Yamunu. Like I would encourage people to be very, very confident, to be very, very confidential about people's stories.
Right.
Sometimes a person is like, oh my gosh, this person who got raped. You quickly rush to the pastor, you quickly rush to mama, you quickly rush to the police. They're not ready to talk about it yet, and they'll feel
Right.
betrayed. They'll feel like you let them down. So sometimes ask. So I actually had a friend of mine, one of my best friends, unfortunately, because of the event, they got so messed up that we're not as close anymore. But she called me when she got raped, and immediately I was like, what do you want to do? And and before we even reported to the police, I rushed her to the clinic because of the diseases and everything and stuff like that. And I would ask, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And every single time she would say, yes, let's go to the police. I didn't rush her to the police. I didn't make it
Right.
my decision. It was her decision. But then the first thing was, let's go to the hospital. Do you want to go? And then she's like, yeah. But to the police, let's wait, because she was afraid of what will
Yeah.
happen and everything. Unfortunately, because of that event, it really it you cannot force yourself on people. It really affected her to the
Right.
point that she shut down, and she's actually an example of what can happen to people. Eventually, I think she's now fine, but then in that season, she really really struggled.
Right.
So loved ones really need to learn to understand that it's nothing personal. It's not about them. It's this thing that attacked this person that is now
Yeah.
causing your loved one. This is why even in the symptoms, they will ask you, tell us about yourself. You know, who were
Right.
you before? Right. And then there's another thing that is called Cptsd. I don't know if you've listened to my videos on Facebook.
I
Cptsd
didn't
now
hear
can
you talk about it.
explain
Yeah.
this people. There are some videos on my Facebook. If you have me next time, I could talk about CPTSD, but it's another topic. But it's a PTSD, but it's another topic. It could explain people who are in this prolonged state that you say you know, this prolonged state, because it's people that went through childhood trauma. So usually a
Okay.
lot of people that went through childhood trauma, they have the symptoms of PTSD, but then they look like their personalities. They look like their characters. Because I
Oh.
promise you, there's no one who was created by God angry. There's no one who was created by God mad or, just coming out of this earth, just wanting to,
With
their mother's womb,
anxiety and
just wanting
can't
to kill
sleep
people.
and all of
Something
that.
happened, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Environments, how we're raised, upbringing, childhood, all contribute to personalities and the attitudes and behaviors that people eventually adopt when they're grown. Because one of the things that we do as people is our upbringing sort of like colors our perception of the environment. So if you're raised by
Right.
abusive parents, the time you get into a society, you think that everybody is abusive. So you think that you
Right.
always have to be defensive around people when it's not true. It was
Right.
just your father and your mother. So it's like a person who went through CPTSD, they went through a prolonged state of negative events happening to them. You understand? And it usually
Yeah.
happens at a very delicate stage when you did not know anything. So a 6-month-old baby begins to witness violence within the house until they're 18. How normal do you
Yeah.
think that person is? And then what
Yeah.
usually happens is these people don't talk about it. They shut down. Then they meet sweet little precious Rosie when they are both 28 and they get married. And Rosie has her own issues. And this guy has his own. And before you know it, 6 months later, the marriage is crumbled because there are a lot of
Yeah.
things that are within people. But CPTSD is another topic. Yeah, it's not a tank. But anyway, there's one thing that I actually wanted to share with you today, if you allow me. Where is it?
Oh, definitely. I was going to before you go there. I'm not too sure because I really wanted to get into, maybe that's the story that you just shared, into a story that can make this theory that you've just bombarded us with sort of make sense in a relatable way in our day-to-day lives. Like,
Okay.
if is anything that happened where you've actually been able to identify, or somebody actually then owned up and said, I had it, where you can say, maybe if you're going through the same experience with somebody, this is what's happening.
Okay. So, one of the things that happens with people with PTSD is stress can change our bodies, and stress is not good to our physical bodies. This can happen in two ways. A person can begin to try to cope with PTSD using substances, risky behavior like sleeping with anybody and everybody, or taking alcohol to sort of like deal with issues. A lot of people who are alcoholics, trust me, they are not bad people. They're trying to mask some things that are inside. They're coping with things that have happened to them. Or a person is going to be affected by stress through physiological changes within the body. Like there's a stress hormone that is called cortisol. I know, like it's not even deep. Like when you're going through stress, this hormone is released in your body so that you are better able to handle stress. But then it just happens once in a while. Right. So if you have a high level of cortisol, it means you're always in a constant state of stress. And then this hormone can actually lead to a lot of chronic diseases like heart disease, BP, hypertension, cancer, and the like, and diabetes and like, right? So in my own life, unfortunately, my father was a war veteran. One of the biggest, I would say, one of the biggest scenes that, and I'll say it with confidence, that the Zim government did to men and women who went to war. They never offered them rehabilitation. They never offered them counseling in PTSD because of the things that they had seen. Do you know those adverts? Those my father was there. Yeah. My father was there. My father was one of the people that dug the graves of people that died. Pachimoyo.
Yeah.
Those hundreds of bodies. My father was present. And my father went through the war in Zim. My father went through the war in Angola. My father went through the war in Congo. My father went to Nigeria. So my father was exposed to a lot of war. And when he came back, now I was very young. I mean, I don't understand PTSD. I had not gone to university back then. So my father was an alcoholic. He was an alcoholic. My father could not function without alcohol. I did not know that. I did not know until you look back in retrospect. And I mean, you grow up resenting him. You grow up seeing all these things. So he was verbally abusive. He was emotionally abusive. He was just all the symptoms that I described there. I literally could say yes, 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 yes. My father could not really sleep without alcohol because when he slept, he would see things that he'd seen in war. A lot of things happened to him, you know. So when I talk about PTSD and trauma, I am actually a person who witnessed and who lived with a person. Obviously, it was not pretty. So obviously, I went through a childhood that was very difficult. But then, well, thankfully, I went through psychology. I got years of therapy without even knowing I'm going through therapy. So it is very real that it's a sickness. PTSD is a sickness. It is actually something that people struggle with and they're not faking it. But unfortunately, in our community and in our Black community, we associate it with character. It happens, you know, not knowing that a person is actually sick and they actually need help, and they gotten counseling, and they've been, one of the biggest things that is in my heart is to open up centers that counsel people when it comes to trauma, because it is just terrible. It is a terrible sickness that is causing people to sink into addictions, eating disorders, alcoholic disorders, obesity.
and then causing and causing that sort of brokenness to the next generation, like you're saying, like as you're telling the story, I was thinking it is unintentional for your father to have sort of inflicted pain on you, but he was just trying to mask his own pain. But in turn, maybe if you hadn't gone the counseling that or the therapy that you're going through through your psychology studies, maybe you would also be functioning from a place of brokenness. Do you get what I mean? Because I can actually now think, from what you were saying, there's something like Cptsd. Maybe you probably would have it. Do you get what I mean? And I feel like the one thing that I like about what you're talking about in creating centers for these kind of things is to make sure that if we recognize someone has it, we try and not and protect the people around them from also then acquiring a sort of trauma from what they're seeing the people or their loved ones experiencing. So it's very important. It's a very important subject, and I would like for you to finish off and tell us what you had prepared for us. But I'm very
all right. So I don't know, Angu, but is this a platform that allows my Christianity? I don't know.
Yes, definitely.
That allows.
It does.
All right.
Yes.
So one of the other things that I left out was a person might feel comfortable to open up if they know there are centers in people that are specifically designed to help you deal with it. In Zimbabwe, it's very difficult because, number one, maybe the service is very expensive. Number two, it's not really being made aware. So if there are centers that are there that are affordable and ready to help people, you might find a lot of people can go by themselves and say, please help me deal with this type of situation because I'm really struggling. So anyway, one of the ways, like, even though I'm in the field of psychology, one of the ways that I managed to deal with a lot of the things that happened in my life, I always point people to Christ. I always point people to God, because God is the one who, I always tell people that Jesus is the OG psychologist. He's the OG counselor, because he actually comes to deal with the matters of the heart. He actually comes to deal with the matters of the things that burden us. You know, Matthew, come to me, all you who are burdened. You know, what are those things that are burdening you? Have you ever thought of what are the things that are burdening me? Come to me and I'll unburden everything. He's talking about these things that we're keeping inside of us, these things that happen to us when we're traumatized, this pain, this intrusive symptom, this intrusive thoughts, this memories that are haunting us, this disturbance in sleep. He's saying, come to me and I'll unburden you, and I'll take those things and I'll carry them. And like, I'll give an instance of 2 Corinthians 5:17-19 says, this means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. You know, you used to be a person who was burdened by the things that happened to you. You go to Christ, you say, Christ, please help me, change me. And then you become a new person. And then you begin to feed yourself the word of God. You begin to tell yourself, I am beautiful, I am loved, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, I am never alone, I am never forsaken. He causes his angels to take charge over me. I know people will be like, but even Christians still get attacked. Yes, Christians still get attacked, but God is always watching over us and is always protecting us. That you might be like, to be aware all the time, I have to be alert, but then his angels are taking God over us. Like, I always want to point people to Christ Jesus and be like, Jesus Christ, he's the one who, when I began to take seriously my Christianity, that's when I actually began to see a noticeable difference in my character and my personality, because Jesus is all about love. He's always about teaching people how to be kind to one another, how to be patient to one another, how to really, and if you actually look at a lot of verses in the Bible, they actually talk about renewing our minds. They actually talk about changing the thoughts that we have and replacing them. And the saddest thing, let me actually tell you, in the field of psychology, they just remove Christ. And then they include certain names like CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, that they use to help people with PTSD. Do you know what that is? Cognitive behavioral therapy. It's just literally taking new thoughts and putting them inside of you and removing old thoughts and That's exactly what the Bible says. Renew your mind. Let go of old thoughts and take on new thoughts and think on good thoughts. So CBT is always telling you, you always have to be positive. You always have to think good thoughts, bit by bit, step by step. And that is exactly what the Bible says. It's like the world has discovered that the Bible works, but then they remove Christ and then they make it seem as if it's something new, something that they just recently discovered, or you need to meditate. Trust me, prayer is meditating. Prayer is meditating and you're talking to your God. And then they come up now, you need to have 10 minutes in the morning where you're just meditating and saying positive things to yourself. I'm not saying those things are bad. I'm just saying way before they were being talked about, the Bible was already advocating them, those things for them. Now, I wrote down and I was like, Jesus Christ knew that the way you think is very vital to how you will survive in this world. If God, who made everything and who knows you, and says that it is important to transform your thinking, maybe you ought to listen to God for your sake. Stay committed to transforming your mind. And if any of the things that I was talking about now resonate or is what you're going through, I would, yes, I would encourage people to go for therapy. Yes, I would push for people to go and see psychologists, but I would also say you can combine it with the word of God, because Jesus Christ is the one who understands how you're feeling. He understands what you're going through, and he understands because he was present with you when these things were happening. So he knows exactly how you're feeling. So, I mean, next time I'll go deeper, but I always try to end with the word of God.
You know, I like how you ended with that, because for me, I realized that everything is founded in love, right? On this platform, we're trying to cultivate self-love. And when I talk about self-love, I'm borrowing from the Bible, the way God said the love yourself the way I have loved you. And God has loved you in the fullest form of love, right? And if you're able to love yourself like that, you'll be able to extend that love to other people. And that means that you're going to be very empathetic with people's conditions, but you're also going to be kind to yourself. And that's actually allowing, positivity to come in, removing the anxiety and all of that stuff around that. And I believe that what you've just said might have touched or will touch somebody, because it is true that when you believe in God, the transformation of your mind it's not as hard as if you don't. Do you get what I mean? Because there's that inner voice, that inner power that comes and helps you to take over your mind and to control your mind. And giving freely this love and advice is also such an amazing gift that God has given you. And we just want to thank you as a group for coming and helping us understand how we have got ruins, but we need to love the ruins. And I'm going to point everyone again towards Love the Ruins page and YouTube channel, because I've listened to almost everything. I think I missed the Cptsd one, but all of those videos are very informative in the things that I never thought of practically. And I think in our culture, these myths and we not talking about these taboo topics has made us sort of ignorant to things that are simple. So just knowing that my uncle is struggling with PTSD makes me more compassionate and makes me more understanding him and his family, and maybe the other people that I'm going to bring in my circle as well. So guys, I hope that we've managed to help you. I know Revi was full on teacher today. So please let's go listen to it again. I definitely will listen to this again, because I feel that there's nuggets that I still want to write down and just make it practical in my own life. So let's keep praying and let's be good. Thank you, Ruthie. Hope to see you and back here again, because, well, there's still more to talk about in Christianity with psychology. Yes.
Bye.